let's get going then. Now, I created this image because one of the great things about AI is it can create images that don't really exist out there. The AI landscape, what do I mean by that? What I mean is I feel like every day I'm emailed, I get updates about new AI techs, and I don't really know what to do or where to start. It's impossible to keep up with it. Everything is coming out free, and everything is coming out sounding really attractive. A lot of the products do the same. So at the moment, it is a wild west. Don't worry if you can't keep up with everything. Nobody can. With all these new softwares and programs and tools that are coming out, like CuraPod, Magic School, etc., what you'll find is the underlying technology is the same. It's generative AI. And by generative AI, what we mean is it generates an output using text. We'll look at Chat GPT, we'll look at Bard, and we'll look at Claude. They're my three that I use, and everything I show you tonight is free, and I have been told it will stay free. The one thing I would say, remember, just because it's free now, it's probably going to change, and AI is actually really heavy on processing, so it costs a lot of money. Get the ideas while you can using the free stuff, and then we'll learn how to write a prompt, and you'll be able to do it yourself. You won't need to use the paid service. Practical uses for planning and prep. Remember, these are teacher specific. However, you can use these for any area or any piece of work you want. As a thought partner, I know that quite often I get stuck in a rut, or I keep going down the same route, and I don't vary what I'm doing. I don't vary the resources or the activities I'm giving my students. It's really easy to get safe or not even think of new ideas. So unless I bump into my colleague and we both have time to sit and chat, that ideas generation can be really difficult. But you can use AI to actually be that idea generator, to be that thought partner. If you're stuck with what you should do, you can use it instead of just staring at a blank space. You can create lesson, a rubric, resource creations. Now, the thing with this is it creates it in moments for me. AI doesn't create the perfect lesson, rubric, resource creation. It also can hallucinate. By that, I mean it makes things up. And it makes it up in such a convincing way, so always remember to check it. When it comes to your students, you know them best. When it comes to what suits you as a teacher, you know that best. So you will always need to tailor it. Anna, I know we were talking about emails and marketing and things earlier. So drafting emails and letters. Have you ever had to write that difficult email where you know the kind of key aspect you need to get across, but you need to get the tone right? Or you're inviting someone in for a difficult meeting. Or you've got to write a really formal letter, but you don't have a lot of time. AI is great here because, again, with the prompt engineering, you're going to see how you set it up and then how you can actually do this. I'm using it all the time now. I have to say it saves me hours. Marking, grading, and feedback. Now, this is actually a really big sort of question in the classroom. A lot of schools don't want you using it for putting in students' work. How I use it is I don't put in any identifying features, and I use it for class feedback. And we'll talk about that later. And report writing, the bane of every teacher's life. You know, when it comes to those times in the term when you have to do a whole year's or whole key stages reports, it can help you and do things quickly, freeing up your time to teach, to interact with your students, maybe to have a little bit of work-life balance. Prompt writing, what is it? Prompt writing is the key. This is how we actually get the information out of the computer or out of the generative AI. There are a lot of different models out there. There's Dan Fitzpatrick's Prep, or he's developed into Prepare. There's Mark Anderson's Stare, and there's other ones you'll find. But the easiest way for me to understand it was to think of it as an actor, but an actor who has no idea what they're going into. So they've just been told to turn up at this place. You need to give it a role. So we're going to look at some prompts and I'll explain how we do this, but we actually need to give it a role. What is its role? Is it a year 5 teacher? Is it a NASA scientist? Is it an astronaut? Is it someone who is an author? What is the role? Set that scene. So I'm saying year 5, grade 5. Do you want to have it set the scene? So you're saying you are a year 5 teacher. You are in an English class. We are studying. Remember to be specific. It can't read your mind yet. And I'm really personally glad about that. Remember the audience. So when you describe the output you want, so if I want some resources or some lesson activities or an email, describe the audience. It needs to know who it's writing for. What reading age are you looking for, or reading level? Now, a lot of people have got frustrated with generative AI when I've spoken to them. And the reason they've got frustrated is they expect it to be a bit more like a Google search, whereas it's not. It's a conversation. So you will get information where it doesn't give you exactly what you're looking for. But because it's that conversation, you refine your thinking, you iterate. If it's too vague, you add more details. If it's too narrow, you rephrase. Test different phrasing and keywords. You will find sort of opening phrases that work for you. Adjust that level of detail and specificity. Now, the other thing is, people don't say this, but remember, generative AI can't get offended. I tell it when it's wrong, when it's not giving me what I'm looking for. The idea is it is that conversation and you're going backwards and forwards. So think about when you're having a normal conversation with a human or with a colleague, a friend, a family member, and they're not getting what it is you want. You would tell them, again, do it again. And the other thing to remember is in many of the chat engines, so especially in Bard and Chat GPT, you can go in and edit your prompt. So instead of having to retype it, you can add to it. If you've maybe put in a specific item, like you want it to be all about TikTok, and then you decide, actually, no, I like the lesson, but I would like it focused on skateboarding, you can go back in and change that. Or you could change which year group or what the subject is. Okay, any questions so far? Remember, we will chat at the end, and there is plenty of time for you at the end. When we're looking at this prompt writing, I want to show you an example. So you need to remember, we're giving it a role, we're being specific, we're setting the scene, remembering the audience, and describing the output. Now, there's different views. Some people like to be very polite when you're doing this. I don't find it helps. So, create a lesson plan. We all know how long it takes to create a lesson plan. And to be honest, we can get, as I say, into that flow where we're using the same activities and the same sort of format over and over again. So I'm going to create a lesson plan on the rainforest, but my students are actually going to visit the living rainforest. So what I want to do is I'm going to set that scene, I'm going to give it a role, I'm going to ask it for what I want, and I'm going to be really specific and tell it my audience. So you're a year 5 teacher. You're taking your students on a visit to the rainforest. Sneaky view ahead. I'm telling it what the tour is going to be based on, and I'm telling it I want a glossary of terms. So I want the key vocab. I'm asking it to create a 45-minute lesson for me, and it's an introductory lesson for my year 5 students, and I want it to include some paired activities, a good introductory video. Now, the key with this is always to say, give me the URL of where I can find any resources, because otherwise you'll find it does suggest resources or create really good ideas, or will say, go and find a video on X. And that takes a really long time. We know that finding these videos and finding the resources can be one of the great time sucks. Now, once I've put this in, I get my results. But actually, it's given me a lesson plan I like, it's given me the resources I like, but I forgot to ask it for the learning outcomes. So actually now I'm going to continue my conversation and say, suggest 3 learning outcomes for it. One of the tricks with AI is to, if you want 1 learning outcome, as in you only want 1 for that lesson, ask for 3. If you want 3, you ask for 6, because that way you get to pick and choose. Now, rubrics, creating a rubric used to be a really, really big time suck for me. And what I mean by that is trying to come up with a different criterion, trying to put it into a 4-point rubric, typing it up. But AI can do this in moments. Again, you're priming it. So you're telling it is a Key Stage 3 Year 9 geography teacher. You're telling it the project. And where I've got insert project information here, I would just put in the student resource or a brief summary of the project. I've asked it for a 4-point rubric, with 4 being excellent. I've asked it to include the criterion needed to achieve, and I've asked it to tabulate the rubric. Now, this is where I think Bard actually scores over Chat GPT, because if you ask Bard to tabulate something, you can take it straight out into Google Sheets. You don't need to rewrite it. And we all know that most of our learning management systems actually use a spreadsheet to create the rubrics. Once I've got this information, and we are going to play with it in a minute, I might have a follow-on thought and think, actually, I would like to put an aspect of my project in where my students are doing peer evaluations. So I'm now asking it to create a rubric for peer evaluations. I might use both, I might use one. When it creates a rubric for me, it literally creates a rubric like you would be used to. We'll have a look in a second. When it creates a rubric for peer evaluations, it's much more I can, I do, I saw, I understood, they showed me. It's very much in the first person there. Google Bard. We will pop into Google Bard, Chat GPT and Claude, but this is me putting in a rubric. So I put in that prompt, I put in all the project, and I asked it to create a rubric. Now, this is filmed in real time. So the biggest bit for me was actually putting in the information. That's the bit that took me the longest. But I've just copied and pasted it in here. You'll see that it's coming up, it's thinking about it, and then you can scroll down. One of the things with Bard is not only does it tabulate it and let you export to sheets, it will let you copy it, and it lets you share it with a colleague so you can share this conversation. The other thing is it always gives you 3 examples. So if you don't like the first draft, you can look at draft 1, 2, or 3. Now, I tend to use all of the chat engines and just put the same prompt in and see which one I prefer, or I might even mix and match. Bard is free and it will stay free, whereas Duet AI or Microsoft Copilot is going to be quite a hefty charge for students. I think the price will come down in the future. However, at the moment, they're looking at $30 or £30 per student. So for most of us, it's not going to be attainable. The difference is Duet is within the workspace. And so you have the guarantees of it not recording data, not learning, and you're safer putting information in. However, I just don't put in any identifying information. Chat GPT, let's just move on to the next slide. You'll see it does exactly the same thing. So I've put the prompt in again, and you can see it's a long prompt. It's only a long prompt because of me putting in the presentation information for the students, the project information. And as I scroll down, there's my rubric. From Chat GPT, I can copy it, or I can share it. Now I'm using Chat GPT 3.5. So remember, I said everything I'm showing you is free because I know how difficult it is to get money spent on different programs, tools, etc. you'll see that it will appear over here. And so I can go back to it. However, in both Bard and in Chat GPT, I can turn off the learning. Now, I like this, that I can turn off the learning, because then if I'm putting anything in I'm at all concerned about, it doesn't learn from what I'm typing and it doesn't remember. However, it does mean you can't go back to your conversation and continue it at a later date. If you are looking for a free software, there is Claude. Claude doesn't use the internet, but it was written by the people who originally wrote Chat GPT and left and developed a different version. There's Chat GPT 3.5. There's Bing, Microsoft Bing, which we'll come back to in a second, and there's Google Bard. Now, Bing actually uses the underlying technology for Chat GPT 4. So you do actually get with Chat GPT, because Chat GPT doesn't refer to the internet, but Chat GPT 4 does. So if you use it through Bing, you can get some free access to some of those more advanced tools and get it to reference the internet. Now, I think it's always worth having a look at the technology itself. So if you're staying on at the end, we'll look at the technology and we will do some examples. But before we move forward, I just want to show you. If we go to Chat GPT and we're on Chat GPT 3.5, do you remember I said you can edit your subject, so you can change it. So this was my original prompt I put in. However, if I wanted to go in and change it, I would click on the pencil. If I want to turn it off, turn that history off, I can do that. Now, one of the fun things is I can share this conversation with you, and I can either share this conversation and I can do the same in Bard. In Chat GPT, you come over to it in the toolbar, you click on the three dots, we always know that means more or goodies, as I like to think, and you click share. Now I'm going to share this with you. So I'm going to copy the link and I'm going to put it into the chat. Now, if you access this link, what you're going to find is you are able to see the chat. If you don't have an account, you'll just be able to view it. But if you have an account, you can actually continue the conversation. But it doesn't affect my conversation. It's not a collaborative conversation. It's each person's conversation. I've just shared that with you, and it gives you an example prompt. Feel free to click on it in the chat. Okay, so what are some quick wins? How can I actually use this technology in the classroom? Well, people like Dr. Monica Burns, Mark Anderson, the ICT evangelist, all have prompts you can use and you can copy. A lot of people, as we know, educators are very generous, are sharing their prompts, and you can just go in and tweak them. When I send out the slides afterwards, you'll see a link to these in the slides. So you can just click on them and access them. But what are the quick wins? What could I use in my classroom tomorrow or next week? So this is planning and prep, remember. This is from the teacher side. This is where I'm using it as a personal assistant, a teaching assistant, and a thought generator, a colleague. I'm not creating things that the students interact with. It's not the focus for today. So individualization. What do I mean by that? Individualization, I find really difficult. So you have 30, 35 students in a class, and you want to create something individual for each of those students. How could you do that? Well, if you're creative, you could spend a lot of time and you could go through changing the keywords. But in Chat GPT or Bard or Prompt, what you can do is you can actually put in the information to ask Chat GPT to do the heavy lifting for you. In this case, you're an expert educator who's great at making learning relevant to student interests. A lot of these prompts you'll find, be careful because they do ask you to put in personal information. As I say, I keep it general. So I'm saying in our Year 10 English class, we've been studying persuasive language, and it's both factual and fictional literature. I want it to generate 4 personalized learning resources for a student who's 14 years old. So this first bit is setting it up. This is what I want it to do. I want it to create those 4 personalized learning resources for a student who is 14. However, they have a reading age of a 12-year-old or a Lexile level. Now, their biggest love, whenever I hear them chatting and gossiping, it's always about Taylor Swift and TikTok. One of the great things about this is you can go in and change it afterwards. I'm saying the resource should be engaging, it shouldn't talk down to my students, and it should be easy for them to work independently on. So this is what it's come up with. Hey there, fellow nerd and Swift enthusiast. And then it's got some different ideas. So it says, how about decode Taylor Swift's lyrics? Analyze how she uses persuasive language in her songs to connect with the listener. It then gives you a challenge or an appeal. Here, explore how persuasive language is used in TikTok, in ads, trends, influencers. And you get the general idea. Taylor versus TikTok ads, a showdown. So you can get some really creative resources really quickly. Now, if I wanted to, I could then go in and say, instead of Taylor Swift, they were into, you'll have to excuse my spelling, basketball and skateboarding. I'm using that same prompt and I'm creating yet another set of resources, all using the same underlying prompt, and I'm just putting it back in. I haven't had to retype loads. Give Bard a minute and it's thinking about it. Now, depending how heavy the use is, you'll find that sometimes Bard or Chat GPT or even Claude will kind of skip out on you. Just refresh your page and try again. So here's one on persuasion basketball legends. How great is that? And how easy was that for me to do? Differentiation. What about if I want a piece of writing and I don't have it at a set level? How can I do that? Diffit and Almanac are both free. And what it will do is it can change the Lexile levels of documents online. It can create resources and it can create actual passages at a set reading level. So let's have a little look at that. Diffit, you log in, it's free. But what you can do is literally, you can create some information on literally anything. You can link it to an article or a video, but it has to have British or English UK subtitles or any text or excerpt. Now, I'm going to put in here Charlotte Web story comprehension, purely because it's one of my favorites. I want this, and I'm going to make it for someone who's got an advanced reading age. I'm going to make it for a year 9 or grade 9, and I'm going to generate those resources. You give it a minute, it's thinking about it, and remember, you always have to check what it comes up with. But I don't have this information for someone who's got that reading age, so it's creating it for me. Or, as I say, I could have actually put my original text in. Once it comes up with it, you're going to see it comes up with the text, it comes up with some questions, it comes up with some key terms, and a summary. All that within moments. You can copy these questions out. You can turn them into a Google form at a click of a button. Now, let's say I read this and I think, oh, my student's not going to understand all of this language. I actually need to take it down, or I want to create another resource for some year 5 students or grade 5. So I'm just going to change it up here and regenerate. It's going to create the same sort of information, but it's going to change that reading level, that Lexile level. I know we're almost over on time, but if you can bear with me, I just want to show you 2 more things, and then it will be over to you, question and answers. It's thinking about it. Okay, let's just pop into Almanac while it's thinking about it. So Almanac does the same sort of thing, but it's got lots of tools. And it's got lots of different tools you can use. I like the Lexile level adjuster because it's one of the things I found really, really difficult to create text that was at the right language for my students. Quick feedback. You can put in everybody in the class's answer to a question, get feedback, and it will suggest where to make improvements. But not only can you use it for student feedback, you can use it for feedback on your work. So you could put in your latest resume. You could put in a presentation. You can ask it to make improvements, to offer you suggestions. It's really good at aiding with those challenging emails. We've all been there, where we have to create a difficult email or address a difficult topic and we're not sure how to do it. And just two last ones. Question Well website, which up here, it will create questions for you, multiple choice, fill in the blank or short answer based on any text, YouTube, website, file or doc. So it will generate all these questions for me and I just put in the information I want. And then if you are just looking for story starters or something easy, what about Kids Think Wide? Kids Think Wide is a great one. What it does is it brings up an image and there's some text. So the idea is it helps with writing. It's a great one for English teachers, but not only that, if you go up to the top here, you have Sparks where you have animated pictures and the text to go with it. And you can always regenerate or you could search a specific one. Thank you so much for joining me. I know some of you want to hop off and I know some of you want to play with these tools.